Captain Jake Mitchell stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon, his hands gripping the metal railing as he watched the massive alien ships appear from nowhere. The darkness of space suddenly filled with gleaming vessels that looked like floating crystals, each one bigger than 3 city blocks. His crew moved around him with practiced calm, but Jake could feel the tension in the air. This was the moment they had all been waiting for. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," said Lieutenant Amy Thompson from her position at the communications station. Her voice was steady, but Jake noticed her fingers trembling slightly as she worked the controls. "It's coming from the lead ship." Jake nodded and straightened his uniform. "Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, showing a tall figure with pale, almost transparent skin and 4 long arms. The alien's face was angular and sharp, with large dark eyes that seemed to look down on everything with disdain. When it spoke, its voice was cold and mechanical through the translation system. "I am Commander HFY of the Galactic Confederation. We have been watching your primitive world for many cycles. Your species has barely learned to leave your own planet, yet you dare to venture into space with your crude machines." The alien's 4 arms moved in what might have been a dismissive gesture. "We are here to offer you protection under Confederation law." Jake exchanged a quick glance with his second-in-command, Commander Ryan Phillips. They had rehearsed this moment many times, but it still felt surreal to actually experience it. "Protection from what?" Jake asked, keeping his voice neutral. "From yourselves," HFY replied with what sounded like amusement. "Your species is young and reckless. You have nuclear weapons, primitive computers, and barely functional space travel. Left alone, you will destroy yourselves within a few generations. The Confederation will relocate your population to suitable worlds where you can be properly supervised." Behind Jake, Dr. Nathan Brooks stepped forward. The elderly scientist had been studying alien species for decades, though the aliens didn't know that. "And what happens to Earth?" he asked. "Your planet has useful resources. Mining operations will begin once your people are safely relocated." HFY's tone suggested this was a generous offer. "Do not worry. You will be given comfortable homes on worlds more suitable for primitive species." Jake felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his expression calm. "How many other species have you helped in this way?" "Dozens," HFY said proudly. "The Cardathi were mining asteroids with explosive devices when we found them. The Vorgans had just discovered fusion power. All young species go through this dangerous phase. The Confederation exists to guide them safely through it." Chief Engineer Maria Santos moved closer to Jake's position. She was a small woman with graying hair, but her eyes held a sharpness that few people noticed. "And if we refuse your generous offer?" she asked quietly. HFY's expression didn't change, but his forearm shifted in what might have been a shrug. "Young species often resist at first. They do not understand what is best for them, but the Confederation is patient. We will help you understand." The screen flickered as more alien ships moved into view around Earth. Jake counted at least 20 vessels, each one bristling with weapons that his instruments couldn't fully analyze. The aliens were making their point clear without saying it directly. "We need time to discuss this with our government," Jake said. "Of course. You have one of your days to decide. After that, we will begin the relocation process with or without your cooperation." HFY's image disappeared, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Jake turned to his crew. "Report?" Lieutenant Thompson looked up from her station. "I'm detecting energy signatures from their weapon systems. They're more advanced than anything in our files, but—" She paused, looking uncertain. "But what?" Jake prompted. "The power. Readings are lower than I expected. For ships that size, they should be generating much more energy." Dr. Brooks nodded thoughtfully. "Their technology is impressive, but not beyond what we anticipated. The Confederation has been expanding for about 10,000 years, give or take. They've absorbed dozens of species, but they've never encountered serious resistance." Maria Santos was studying her own readings. "Their ship design is efficient but not innovative. They're using fusion drives that are maybe 50 years ahead of what we publicly acknowledge." Their weapons appear to be plasma-based, probably drawing power from their main engines. Jake walked to the main view screen, looking out at the alien fleet. From here, they looked invincible, but he knew better. Any sign they've detected our real capabilities? None, Ryan Phillips replied. They're treating us exactly like they treated the Carnathi and the Vorgans. They see our public technology level and assume that's all we have. Good, Jake activated his personal communicator. This is Captain Mitchell to Luna Base, begin Phase 1. Far away on Earth's moon, Admiral Lisa Rodriguez received the message in her underground command center. The facility looked like a simple research station from the outside, but beneath the surface lay one of humanity's most advanced military installations. She had been waiting for this moment for 20 years. All stations, this is Luna Base, she spoke into her communicator. The Confederation has arrived. Begin revealing defensive positions. Keep weapons powered down until further notice. Across the solar system, dozens of installations that had been disguised as mining operations, research stations, and communication relays began to change. Hidden armor plating slid back to reveal weapons systems. Fake asteroid mining ships dropped their disguises and powered up their true systems. The space around Earth suddenly became much more crowded with human vessels back on the horizon. Jake watched the alien fleet's reaction to the new arrivals. The Confederation ships held their position, but he could see them scanning the newcomers. With obvious confusion, they're trying to figure out where all these ships came from, Amy Thompson reported. Their scans are showing human technology, but they can't understand how we built so many vessels without them noticing. Because they weren't looking for them, Dr. Brooks said with a slight smile. They saw a primitive species that had barely reached its own moon, so they didn't bother with detailed surveillance. They have no idea we've been traveling to other star systems for over a century, Jake nodded. It had been a careful balancing act, showing the galaxy just enough human technology to appear as a developing species while hiding their true capabilities. Nuclear weapons and basic fusion drives were impressive to a young civilization, but laughably primitive to a species that had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. Sir, Ryan Phillips said, looking up from his station, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth. The President wants to speak with you. Put him through to my ready room, Jake said. Commander Phillips, you have the bridge. Keep monitoring the alien fleet, but don't do anything that might be seen as aggressive. As Jake walked to his private office, he reflected on how long they had been preparing for this moment. The Confederation wasn't evil, just arrogant. They genuinely believed they were helping primitive species by taking control of their worlds. They had no idea that humanity had been watching them for decades, studying their methods, and preparing for the day when they would arrive at Earth. The President's face appeared on Jake's private screen, looking grim but determined. Captain Mitchell, are you ready to proceed with the plan? Yes, sir. The aliens have given us 24 hours to surrender. That should be enough time for the first phase of the revelation. Good. Remember, we're not trying to start a war. We just need to make them understand that we're not the primitive species they think we are. Jake smiled. Don't worry, sir. By tomorrow, they'll know exactly who they're dealing with. Professor Helen Carter walked through the underground halls of the Geneva Research Center, her footsteps echoing off the polished concrete walls. The facility was buried 300 feet beneath the Swiss mountains, far from any prying eyes or alien sensors. She carried a small device that contained information that would change everything the galaxy thought it knew about humanity. Secretary General Paul Johnson was waiting for her in the main conference room, along with representatives from every major nation on Earth. The room was filled with nervous energy as world leaders prepared to hear something that would challenge everything they believed about their own species. Ladies and gentlemen, Helen began, activating the holographic display in the center of the room. What I'm about to show you has been classified for over 50 years. We've kept it secret because we weren't ready for the implications. But now, with the Confederation at our doorstep, it's time to reveal the truth. The display showed a three-dimensional map of the galaxy, with hundreds of star systems marked in different colors. Most were blue, representing known alien civilizations. But scattered throughout the map were red dots, each one marking something far more significant. These red markers represent archaeological sites where we've found evidence of ancient human civilization. Helen continued. Not primitive humans, but a spacefaring culture that existed millions of years ago. We've been finding these sites for decades, but we've kept the discoveries secret while we tried to understand what they meant. Dr. Kevin Walsh, the world's leading expert on prehistoric archaeology, stepped forward. His weathered face showed the strain of years spent studying artifacts that shouldn't exist. The evidence is overwhelming. We found human DNA in rock formations that predate the supposed evolution of our species by millions of years. We've discovered tools and structures that match human proportions, but were clearly created by a far more advanced civilization. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. President Martinez of the American Federation was the first to speak. Are you saying that humans didn't evolve on Earth? That's exactly what we're saying, Helen replied. The fossil record has always had gaps that scientists couldn't explain. The sudden appearance of modern human traits, the inexplicable leaps in brain development, the fact that humans are poorly adapted to many aspects of Earth's environment. It all makes sense if we accept that we're not native to this planet. Dr. Carol Manning, a linguist who had spent her career studying ancient languages, activated another section of the display. 3 years ago, Captain Linda Foster's exploration team discovered a vault beneath the Antarctic ice. Inside were records, written in a script that predates any known human language. It took us 2 years to decode it, but the message was clear. The display showed rows of alien-looking symbols that gradually transformed into readable text. The records speak of something called the Great Exodus. An ancient human civilization that spanned hundreds of star systems faced a threat so terrible that they had to abandon everything they had built. They scattered their people across the galaxy, seeding dozens of worlds with human populations. Colonel Steve Baker, commander of the Space Defense Initiative, had been listening quietly from the back of the room. Now he stepped forward, his military bearing evident even in civilian clothes. The records describe a process called adaptation. Seeding. Each group of humans was given modified memories and reduced lifespans to help them survive on their new worlds. Earth was one of many such refuge planets. But why hide this from us? Asked Prime Minister Chun of the Asian Alliance. Why not tell us the truth about our origins? Helen's expression grew grim. Because the threat that drove our ancestors to hide is still out there. The records call them the Vanguard, entities of pure energy that consume entire star systems. The ancient humans didn't just scatter their people, they deliberately made each group appear primitive to avoid drawing the Vanguard's attention. Dr. Walsh brought up new images on the display, showing massive structures buried in ice and rock on dozens of worlds. We've been in contact with archaeological teams on other planets for years. The Confederation doesn't know it, but every world they've helped has similar ruins. The Carnathy, the Vorgans, all the so-called primitive species they've absorbed, they all have evidence of advanced human civilization in their geological record. The Secretary-General leaned forward. You telling us that every species the Confederation has encountered is actually human? Not all of them, Helen corrected, but a significant number. Our ancestors didn't just preserve themselves, they guided the development of other species as well. The Confederation exists because ancient humans created the conditions for galactic civilization to flourish. Captain Linda Foster had been standing quietly by the window, but now she spoke up. When we found the Antarctic vault, we also discovered something else. A communications array that's been dormant for millions of years. We managed to activate it last week. The room tensed as Linda continued. We made contact with similar installations on 17 different worlds. Each one is guarded by humans who have been maintaining the technology for generations. They've been waiting for the day when Earth would be ready to reclaim its heritage. Colonel Baker activated his own display showing technical schematics that made the assembled leaders gasp. The technology we've been showing the galaxy is deliberately primitive. Our real capabilities are based on designs that our ancestors left behind. The fusion drives, the energy weapons, the defensive systems we've been secretly building, they're all based on ancient human technology. How long have you known about this? President Martinez asked. The first hints came in the 1950s. Steve replied, strange artifacts and crashed meteors, technology that didn't match any known civilization. We've been slowly uncovering the truth ever since, but we've kept it secret because we weren't ready to face the implications. Dr. Manning brought up a new section of the ancient records. The most disturbing part is what happened to the original human civilization. They didn't just scatter because of the vanguard. They were actively hunted. The records describe entire star systems being consumed in minutes, billions of humans dying as their worlds were turned into energy. But our ancestors found a way to fight back, Helen added. They developed weapons that could actually damage the vanguard, technology that used the fundamental forces of reality itself. The problem was that using these weapons also attracted more vanguard attention. Colonel Baker's expression was grim. So they made a choice. They scattered their people across the galaxy and went into hiding, hoping that by appearing primitive, they could avoid detection until they were strong enough to fight back. And now the Confederation has found us, Secretary General Johnson said quietly. They think we're just another primitive species to be absorbed, which gives us an advantage, Linda Foster said. They have no idea what they're really dealing with. They see our public technology level and assume that's all we have. They don't know about the installations we've been building, the weapons we've been developing, or the fact that we've been in contact with other human colonies for decades. Dr. Walsh brought up a final image on the display, showing a star map with dozens of red dots connected by glowing lines. This is our real situation. We're not alone, and we're not primitive. We're part of a network of human civilizations that has been preparing for this moment for thousands of years. The question is, Helen said, are we ready to reveal ourselves? Once we show the galaxy who we really are, there's no going back. The vanguard will know that humans are active again, and they'll come for us. The room fell silent as the world's leaders considered the implications. Outside, the Confederation fleet waited for humanity's answer, completely unaware that they were dealing with the descendants of the galaxy's most ancient and advanced civilization. Secretary General Johnson stood up slowly. How long do we have before the Confederation forces us to make a decision? Less than 18 hours, Colonel Baker replied. But our forces are already in position. We've been preparing for this moment for decades. The question isn't whether we can surprise them. It's whether we're ready for what comes after. The revelation was about to begin. Chief Technology Officer Rachel Davis stood in the control room deep beneath Cheyenne Mountain, watching dozens of screens that showed the true scope of humanity's hidden defenses. The facility stretched for miles underground, its walls lined with technology that would have seemed impossible to the Confederation forces orbiting Earth. She had been waiting for this moment for 15 years, ever since she had first learned the truth about humanity's real capabilities. All stations report ready, announced Lieutenant Sam Turner from his position at the tactical console. His team had been training for this day, learning to operate weapon systems that their ancestors had designed millions of years ago. The irony wasn't lost on him that the same technology used to flee from an ancient enemy would now be used to surprise modern aliens. Rachel activated the main communication array. This is Mountain Base to all hidden installations. Begin Phase 2 of the Revelation Protocol. Power up defensive systems but keep weapons offline until further notice. Across the solar system, installations that had been disguised as ordinary human structures began to transform. The mining platform orbiting Saturn's rings dropped its false exterior, revealing a weapons array that could destroy capital ships. The research station near Jupiter's moons extended hidden sensor arrays that had been monitoring alien communications for decades. The asteroid mining facility in the belt split apart to reveal a massive manufacturing complex that had been producing advanced ships in secret. on the UES horizon. Captain Jake Mitchell watched the Confederation fleet's reaction through his bridge windows. The alien ships had been holding position above Earth for 6 hours, confident in their superiority. Now, their formation was shifting as their sensors detected energy signatures they couldn't explain. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Confederation flagship," reported Amy Thompson. "Commander HFY sounds confused." Jake smiled grimly. "Put him through." The alien's image appeared on the main screen, his 4 arms moving in what seemed like agitation. "Captain Mitchell, our sensors are detecting additional vessels in your system." "Where did these ships come from?" "They've been here all along," Jake replied calmly. "You just weren't looking for them. Impossible." "We conducted thorough scans of your system when we arrived. These vessels were not present." Dr. Nathan Brooks stepped into view of the communication screen. "Commander, your scans were designed to detect active fusion drives and energy weapons. Our ships use different technology." HFY's large eyes narrowed. "What technology?" "Your species has barely mastered basic fusion power." "That's what we wanted you to think," Jake said. "Dr. Brooks, show them." The elderly scientist activated a control panel and the view screen switched to show the asteroid belt. What had appeared to be a collection of mining ships suddenly revealed their true nature. Hulls that had seemed like simple metal plating shifted and reconfigured, showing sleek vessels with curves that suggested advanced engineering. Energy fields began to glow around them, bending light in ways that made the ships seem to flicker in and out of existence. "Stealth technology," Brooks explained. "Our ships don't just hide from sensors, they bend space around themselves. Your scans passed right through them." Commander HFY's expression changed from confusion to something approaching concern. "This is not possible. No species develops such technology without assistance from the Confederation." "We didn't need assistance," Jake said. "We already had the knowledge." Deep in the Colorado facility, Rachel Davis was coordinating with installations across the system. The defensive grid that had been secretly constructed over decades was finally revealing itself. The communication satellites that had seemed like simple technology were actually quantum relay nodes, allowing instant communication across vast distances. The power stations that had appeared to be basic fusion plants were actually matter-antimatter generators, producing energy levels that the Confederation had never encountered. "Mountain Base, this is Titan Station," came a voice through the communication array. "All stealth systems are offline. We're showing full capabilities now." Rachel looked at the tactical display showing the positions of both human and alien ships. "Understood, Titan Station. Begin revealing weapon systems. Power levels at 50%. Near Saturn, the Titan research facility began to unfold like a massive flower. What had seemed like a simple scientific outpost expanded into a fortress, bristling with weapons that drew power from controlled singularities. The energy readings were so intense that they distorted space around the station, creating visual effects that made it look like a star had suddenly appeared in the darkness. On the Confederation flagship, alarms began to sound. HFY's crew reported energy readings that exceeded their understanding of physics. The primitive species they had come to relocate was revealing technology that surpassed their own by orders of magnitude. "Captain Mitchell," HFY's voice was no longer condescending. "What are you?" "We're human," Jake replied simply. "But we're not what you think we are." Captain Beth Morgan had been waiting in the asteroid belt for 3 hours, her ship hidden among the rocks and mining equipment. Now she activated the true systems of her vessel, and the disguised freighter transformed into something that belonged in the nightmares of enemy commanders. The hull shifted from dull metal to a surface that seemed to absorb light itself, while weapon systems extended from hidden compartments. "This is the UES Defender to all vessels," Beth announced. "Full stealth is now offline. Show them what we really are." Across the solar system, dozens of ships revealed their true nature. Vessels that had seemed like simple cargo haulers extended weapons arrays that could punch through the armor of battleships. Ships that had appeared to be passenger transports opened their hulls to reveal fighter squadrons equipped with technology that made the Confederation's best fighters look like children's toys. The alien fleet found itself surrounded by vessels that had been invisible to their sensors, commanded by a species they had dismissed as primitive. The humans hadn't just hidden a few ships. They had concealed an entire military force that had been preparing for this moment for generations. "Sir," Amy Thompson reported to Captain Mitchell, "the Confederation fleet is powering up their weapons." "Expected," Jake replied. "They're scared." Dr. Brooks began the demonstration. Dr. Brooks activated another control system, and the space around Earth began to shimmer. What had seemed like empty vacuum revealed itself to be filled with defensive installations. Energy barriers that could stop planet-killing weapons flickered into existence, while weapon platforms that had been disguised as communication satellites began to power up. The most impressive sight was Earth itself. The planet's surface began to glow as massive installations revealed themselves. The Antarctic Research Station expanded into a fortress that dwarfed anything the Confederation had ever built. The lunar bases that had seemed like simple mining operations transformed into military installations that could coordinate the defense of entire star systems. General Tony Rodriguez watched from the Lunar Command Center as the revelation unfolded. "Old defensive positions are now active," he announced. "We're showing them everything except the really scary stuff." On the Confederation flagship, Zefkai was receiving reports from his sensor operators that made no sense. The primitive planet he had come to conquer was revealing defensive capabilities that exceeded those of the Confederation's homeworlds. The humans weren't just more advanced than they had appeared, they were more advanced than anyone in the galaxy. "Captain Mitchell," Zefkai's voice was now carefully controlled, "I believe we may have made an error in our assessment of your capabilities." "Yes," Jake agreed, "you have. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" The alien commander was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his tone was completely different. "Perhaps we should discuss this situation more carefully. May I suggest that representatives from both our peoples meet to reassess our relationship?" Jake looked around his bridge, seeing the satisfied expressions of his crew. They had revealed enough to make the Confederation understand they weren't dealing with a primitive species, but they had kept their most advanced capabilities hidden. The real demonstration was just beginning. "I think that would be wise," Jake said. "But first, let me show you something that will help you understand who you're really dealing with." The revelation was about to enter its next phase. Dr. Andrew Thompson stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Confederation Council, his holographic image appearing in the great chamber on their capital world of Zentara Prime. Representatives from dozens of species filled the massive hall, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. But all of them were focused on the impossible data that Andrew was presenting. "Honored delegates," Andrew began, his voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. "What I'm about to show you will change everything we thought we knew about galactic history." The chamber's central display activated, showing a three-dimensional map of the galaxy that stretched back millions of years. Ancient star systems appeared and disappeared as time flowed backward, revealing patterns that no one had ever noticed before. But now, with human records to guide them, the truth was becoming clear. "These are archaeological sites that have been discovered across the galaxy over the past 1,000 years, Andrew continued. "Each one contains artifacts that predate any known civilization by millions of years. Until now, we assumed they were left by some unknown ancient species that had vanished without a trace." Representative Korthvel of the Drakmarian Empire leaned forward with his massive scaled head. "We have found such ruins on 17 worlds in our territory, but our scientists could never determine their origin." "That's because you were looking in the wrong direction," Andrew replied. "The artifacts aren't from an unknown species. They're from an ancient human civilization that once spanned most of the galaxy." The chamber erupted in sounds of disbelief from dozens of different species. The very idea seemed impossible. Humans were newcomers to space, barely capable of reaching their own moon when the Confederation had first detected them. How could they have once ruled the galaxy? Council leader Zaranin of the Altarian Republic raised her crystalline hand for silence. Dr. Thompson, you're asking us to believe that your species, which we observed struggling with basic fusion technology, once possessed interstellar civilization. Not just interstellar, Andrew corrected, intergalactic. We found evidence that ancient humans had established colonies in nearby galaxies as well. The technology you're seeing now is just a pale shadow of what our ancestors once possessed. Captain Joe Miller had spent 3 months traveling to the Kepler 442 system, following coordinates found in the ancient Antarctic records. His ship, the UES Discovery, had used advanced stealth systems to avoid detection by Confederation patrols. What he found there exceeded even the most optimistic predictions. Discovery to Earth Command, Joe transmitted through the quantum communication array. We've reached the target coordinates. You're not going to believe what we've found. The ancient station orbiting the dead star was larger than most cities. Its hull was made from materials that seemed to bend light around them, creating an effect that made the structure appear to shift and change as they watched. Energy readings indicated that the station was still active after millions of years, powered by sources that human science was only beginning to understand. There's a docking port that matches our ship's specifications, reported Commander Susan Lee from the sensor station. It's like they were expecting us. As the Discovery docked with the ancient station, automated systems came online that had been waiting for eons. The station's main computer began transmitting data that would take years to fully understand, but the basic facts were staggering. This was just one of hundreds of similar installations scattered across the galaxy, each one containing libraries of information that dwarfed anything the Confederation had ever accumulated back on Earth. The implications of the discovery were becoming clear. Dr. Mary Adams stood in the analysis center beneath Geneva, studying data streams that were rewriting everything they knew about galactic history. The ancient humans hadn't just been advanced. They had been the foundation upon which all modern civilization was built. The hyperspace lanes that connect star systems, Mary announced to the assembled scientists. They're not natural phenomena. They were constructed by ancient humans millions of years ago. Every species in the galaxy has been using human-built infrastructure without knowing it. The revelation went deeper than anyone had imagined. The neutron star beacons that guided interstellar navigation had been placed by human engineers. The stable wormholes that allowed faster-than-light travel were maintained by automated systems that still followed their original programming. Even the fundamental principles that modern species used for space travel had been discovered and codified by ancient human scientists. It's not just the technology, Dr. Kevin Walsh added, studying genetic data from the station's archives. Several species in the Confederation show signs of genetic modification that could only have been done by an advanced civilization. The ancient humans didn't just explore the galaxy, they helped guide the evolution of intelligent life. The Drachmarians, with their scaled hide and natural armor, had been modified to survive on high-radiation worlds. The Altarians, with their crystalline structure, had been adapted for low-gravity environments. Species after species showed the subtle touches of genetic engineering that had helped them thrive in their environments, but the records also revealed something far more disturbing. The ancient human civilization hadn't fallen due to war or natural disaster. They had been hunted by something called the Vanguard, entities of pure energy that consumed entire star systems to fuel their expansion across the universe. The Vanguard aren't from our galaxy, Andrew explained to the Confederation Council. They're invaders from outside, beings that exist as pure energy and see matter as nothing more than fuel for their expansion. They've been moving from galaxy to galaxy for billions of years, consuming everything in their path. The ancient humans had fought a war that lasted for thousands of years, developing weapons that could actually damage energy-based entities. But every victory had come at a terrible cost. and the use of their most powerful weapons had only attracted more vanguard attention. Commander Susan Lee was studying the tactical records stored in the ancient station. They called it the Great Scattering, she reported to Earth Command. When it became clear that they couldn't win a direct war against the Vanguard, they made a desperate choice. They spread their people across the galaxy and went into hiding. The plan had been brilliant in its simplicity. By appearing primitive, the scattered human colonies could avoid detection while the Vanguard searched for signs of advanced civilization. Each group was given modified memories and reduced lifespans to help them adapt to their new worlds, but they also carried genetic markers that would eventually lead them back to their true heritage. The Confederation exists because of ancient human planning, Mary Adams realized as she studied the records. They didn't just scatter randomly. They created the conditions that would allow intelligent species to develop and eventually form a galactic civilization. They've been guiding galactic development for millions of years. But the most chilling discovery was yet to come. Dr. Adams pulled up the most recent data from the station's long-range sensors and felt her blood run cold. The energy signatures we've been detecting from deep space, she announced. They match the Vanguard patterns in the ancient records. The enemy that had driven humanity into hiding was stirring again. The increased activity of galactic civilizations, the expanding energy signatures from advanced technology, the growing network of interstellar communication, all of it was beginning to attract attention from outside the galaxy. How long do we have? Captain Miller asked from the ancient station. Mary studied the data for several minutes before answering. Based on the pattern of Vanguard expansion in other galaxies, maybe 50 years before they arrive in force. But advanced scouts could be here much sooner. The revelation that had begun with first contact was about to become something far more serious. Humanity had hidden for millions of years, but now their secret was out. The question was whether the galaxy was ready for what was coming. Back in the Confederation Council chamber, Andrew Thompson delivered the final piece of the puzzle. The ancient humans didn't disappear. They've been waiting, preparing, and watching. Now that we've revealed ourselves, it's time to prepare for the real war. The Vanguard are coming, and this time we won't be running. The galaxy was about to discover what humanity had really been preparing for all along. Admiral Gary Thompson stood on the bridge of the UES Eternal, watching as the massive ship emerged from the hidden construction yards near Proxima Centauri. The vessel stretched for over 10 kilometers, its hull embedded with technology that had been perfected over millions of years of warfare. Around it, hundreds of ships from dozens of species formed the largest fleet the galaxy had ever seen. 3 months had passed since humanity's revelation to the Confederation. The initial shock had given way to desperate cooperation as every species in the galaxy realized they faced a threat that could destroy them all. The Vanguard probe that had been detected at the galaxy's edge was moving closer, and long-range sensors showed more entities following behind it. "Admiral, we're receiving final position reports from all task forces," announced Captain Lavara Williams from her station. "The combined fleet is ready for deployment." Gary nodded, looking at the tactical display that showed ships from across the galaxy. The sleek vessels of the Altarian Republic flew alongside the massive battleships of the Drakmarian Empire. Human stealth fighters moved in formation with Confederation cruisers, their crews working together despite having been enemies just months before. "It's amazing how quickly everyone learned to cooperate once they understood what we're facing," Lavra observed. "Fear has a way of bringing people together," Gary replied. "The question is whether we're ready for what's coming." On the research station orbiting Europa, Dr. Nicole Parker worked frantically with teams of scientists from across the galaxy. The ancient human archives had provided blueprints for weapons that could actually damage the Vanguard, but building them required combining technologies that had never been used together before. "The quantum resonance generators are online," reported Dr. Keth Vor, a Drakmarian physicist whose scaled hide gleamed under the laboratory lights. "But we're still having problems with the energy containment fields." Nicole studied the readings on her display. The ancient humans used a different approach to quantum mechanics than any modern species. We're essentially having to relearn physics from scratch. The weapons they were developing used the fundamental forces of reality itself as ammunition. Instead of firing energy or matter at the vanguard, they would create disruptions in space-time. That could tear apart entities made of pure energy. The technology was so advanced that even with ancient blueprints, it pushed the limits of what the combined knowledge of the galaxy could achieve. "How much time do we have?" asked Dr. Zaranel, an Altarian engineer whose crystalline form sparkled as she worked. "Not enough," Nicole replied grimly. "Our scouts report that the first Vanguard probe will reach the outer systems in less than 2 weeks." Colonel Mike Foster had volunteered to lead the forward observation team that would monitor the Vanguard's approach. His small ship, the UES Watchman, was equipped with the most advanced stealth systems humanity could build, allowing it to get close enough to gather crucial intelligence without being detected. "This is Watchman to Fleet Command," Mike transmitted through the quantum communication array. "I have visual contact with the Vanguard probe." What he saw defied description. The entity appeared as a writhing mass of energy that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. It was larger than most moons, its surface crackling with power that could be felt even through the ship's shields. As Mike watched, the probe extended tendrils of energy toward a nearby star system. "Fleet Command, you need to see this," Mike continued, transmitting his sensor readings. "It's beginning to feed." The star system contained 3 planets, including one with a primitive civilization that had just discovered fire. Mike watched in horror as the Vanguard probe extended energy tendrils that wrapped around the system's star. Within minutes, the star began to dim as its energy was drained away. The planets froze instantly as their source of heat and light was consumed. The entire process took less than 10 minutes, Mike reported. "The probe has doubled in size and is moving toward the next system. At this rate, it will reach inhabited space within days." Back on the Eternal, Admiral Thompson received the transmission with a heavy heart. He had read the ancient records describing Vanguard feeding patterns, but seeing it happen was far more terrifying than any written account could convey. "All ships, this is Admiral Thompson," he announced over the fleet communication system. "The enemy has begun their assault. All units proceed to designated positions. Remember, we're not just fighting for our own species. We're fighting for every form of life in the galaxy." The combined fleet moved toward the edge of the galaxy where they would make their stand. The plan was simple in concept but incredibly difficult to execute. They would use the quantum resonance weapons to disrupt the Vanguard probe while the main fleet protected the weapon platforms from any escort entities that might arrive. General Chris Baker coordinated the defense from the command center on Luna, watching as real-time data flowed in from across the galaxy. "All defensive positions report ready," he announced. "Planetary shields are at maximum power. Evacuation of non-essential personnel is complete." The irony wasn't lost on him that humanity, which had hidden for millions of years to avoid this confrontation, was now leading the galaxy's defense against the same enemy that had once driven them into exile. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Commander Kelly Davis from the intelligence station, "we're detecting energy signatures consistent with additional Vanguard entities. The probe isn't alone." Chris studied the incoming data with growing concern. The ancient records had warned that Vanguard probes were often followed by larger entities, but the energy readings they were detecting suggested something far worse than anyone had expected. "How many?" he asked. "At least 50 confirmed contacts, possibly more." It was still too far away for detailed scanning, but the energy output suggests entities the size of small planets. The battle that was coming would determine the fate of every living thing in the galaxy. If the combined fleet failed, the Vanguard would consume star system after star system until nothing remained but empty space and drifting energy clouds. Commander Patricia Johnson piloted her fighter squadron toward the front lines, her ship's hull crackling with energy from the experimental weapon systems. Around her, pilots from dozens of species flew in formation. Their ships modified with human technology that allowed them to survive in the energy fields generated by Vanguard entities. All squadrons, this is Phoenix Leader, Patricia announced. Remember your training? Don't try to fight these things directly. Our job is to protect the weapon platforms while they charge up for the main attack. The first contact came when the Vanguard probe reached the outer edge of the Centauri system. The entity's energy field was so intense that it interfered with normal space-time, creating visual distortions that made it appear to be in multiple places at once. All weapons platforms commence firing, Admiral Thompson ordered. The quantum resonance weapons opened fire simultaneously, creating tears in reality itself that reached across space to strike the Vanguard probe. For a moment, the entity's energy field flickered and dimmed, suggesting that the weapons were having an effect, but then the probe began to adapt. Its energy patterns shifted and changed, developing resistance to the quantum disruptions. Within minutes, the weapons that had seemed so promising were barely affecting it. The ancient records warned about this, Dr. Parker reported from Europa. The Vanguard learn and adapt quickly. We need to modify our attack patterns. The battle became a deadly game of adaptation and counter-adaptation. As human scientists developed new weapon configurations, the Vanguard entities evolved new defenses. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance as two civilizations that had been fighting for millions of years finally faced each other in open combat. But humanity had learned something during their long exile. They had discovered that the greatest weapon wasn't technology or raw power, but the ability to unite different species in common cause. As the battle raged, the combined fleet fought not as separate armies but as a single force dedicated to protecting all life in the galaxy. The war for the galaxy's survival had finally begun.